Hi, my name is Janie Groeling, and today we'll be talking about traveling and moving with hermit crabs. As a hermit crab parent, I think we can all agree that moving with hermit crabs can sound like a nightmare. And going away on vacation and finding someone trustworthy enough to take care of our babies, that also sounds very stressful and very nerve-wracking. The tropical habitats that we replicate in these giant tanks of ours are no joke to take care of and maintain. And of course, keeping the heat and humidity at the proper levels can be stressful as is, so leaving your hermit crabs on vacation or trying to replicate the proper heat and humidity when you're moving with them, that could be really stressful too. It's definitely not easy to move and try to replicate tropical Caribbean conditions at the same time. So hermit crabs are exotic animals that require tropical conditions and low-stress environments to survive and thrive. Replicating that during a move or ensuring they get the proper care while you are away can be stressful for us owners. In my time of owning hermit crabs, there have been many instances where I have been very stressed and very overwhelmed on whether I was leaving my hermit crabs or I was taking them with me. I would search for answers and advice online, so hopefully this presentation can offer you guys some guidance if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to leave your hermit crabs at home or you're taking them with you traveling. So what we will discuss. We're going to discuss how to properly travel with hermit crabs, what to do if leaving hermit crabs for an extended period of time, and helpful tips and tricks to ensure optimal travel care. But first, a little bit about me and my hermit crab experience, specifically with traveling and moving with them. My name's Janie. I'm currently 25 by the time you see this. I graduated Virginia Tech back in 2022, and I am from New Jersey, right outside of the Philly area. I have been a hermit crab parent for almost 8 years now, and I currently have I have an 80-gallon setup, and then I also have a 40-gallon setup. Back in December, I started my own business called Norton's Nest, selling proper hermit crab care supplies and also beach and coastal apparel with the goal to advocate and spread awareness about hermit crabs. I've dedicated my entire social media to advocating for hermit crabs as well. And within those almost 8 years of owning hermit crabs, I have done a lot of traveling myself, and including 2 moves. I've had to leave my hermit crabs for months at a time, and I've had to travel with hermit crabs for 6 hours at a time. So I've definitely been around the block when it comes to traveling and moving with hermit crabs, having a giant setup that you have to construct, deconstruct, replicating the perfect travel tank with specific conditions to ensure the health and safety of my hermit crabs. I've done it all at this point, so I thought this was a great topic to talk to you guys about and to hopefully offer you some guidance and insight for if you ever have to be in that boat as well, because it can be really daunting and stressful for us owners, because of course we only want the best for our little shelled babies. So let's get a little more into the specifics of my experience. I've had my fair share of time being away from my hermit crabs, whether that was going on vacations or being away at college. On the other hand, having to move 6 hours away with them. So the family vacations, when my entire family is away for a week or 2 at a time, and there's no family member left here at home that can take care of my hermit crabs, what do I do then? When I went away to Virginia Tech for college, that is 6 to 7 hours away from New Jersey, I was away from my hermit crabs for 5 months at a time sometimes, depending on the length of the semester. What did I do then? And then Boston, I moved to Boston post-college. That is 6 hours away. And I brought my hermit crabs with me. So how did I travel to Boston with my hermit crabs? And then eventually back to New Jersey with them. And then trips, whether that was a solo trip to the Florida Keys back last summer when I did have family at home. How did I navigate that with my family? So we're going to dive into all of that. So let's jump into traveling as a hermit crab parent and what it looks like when we go on vacations and we have to leave our hermit crabs at home while we are away. So we have a few options. Number one, if we have family that's at home, whether that's your parents, sibling, aunt, uncle, grandparent, best friend, any trusted loved one, we can leave our hermit crabs in their care. Number two, hire a pet sitter just as you would for your dog or cat. And number three, if you go away just for a little bit and you don't have a pet sitter or a loved one, you can set your tank up for success to sustain itself for those few days that you are gone. So let's touch on that first option first. Have a trusted family member, friend, or pet sitter care for your hermit crabs. So we want to prepare a care guide covering the basic necessities. Of course, heat and humidity levels, feeding guidelines, meal prepping, water care. What I would do in the past is I would literally get a piece of paper, or you can type it out, and I would just write down basically a little simple, easy to understand care guide of just the basics of how to take care of the hermit crabs. Just like a little instruction sheet, just so they have that as a resource. Just definitely taking that time to make that care guide for your pet sitter or whoever's gonna watch your hermit crabs. That is very important and very helpful and useful to them. Of course, now with 21st century, we can FaceTime. One time when I was away, there was a really bad storm at home, and we had a pet sitter at the time because my entire family was on this vacation. So the pet sitter was with my dog and my hermit crabs. I was so anxious and a nervous wreck about this storm. Like, what if the power goes out and the heat pads turn off? So I was able to text my pet sitter. I called her at one point just to check in, and it is just extremely helpful and just like relieving to have that as a source. And if they have any questions about that care guide that you leave them, of course they can just text or call you too. So definitely take advantage of the fact you can call and FaceTime and see your tank live time, and if they have any questions about how do I do this or that, you can just instruct them right over FaceTime. So if you are away for an extended period of time, it's important we have a loved one or a pet sitter that is there to care for your hermit crabs, because we need those weekly or every other day water changes depending on your bubbler situation. Of course, refreshing food when it gets moldy or old, or they simply just eat it all. And heat and humidity, as we know, can fluctuate sometimes, and it's important that we're able to have someone there to adjust and monitor as needed. And of course, tank maintenance should be done here and there, and we don't want to leave it too long without getting the proper maintenance. After graduating college, I traveled a lot. So here's one of my TikTok videos when I was going to be leaving for a trip, and I was leaving my hermit crabs at home with my dad. My mom and sister were away, and they're usually the caretakers. But in this case, I only had my dad, so I had to prep him on how to properly take care of my hermit crabs. So first off,
keep it simple.
The food, every night.
Uh-huh.
So I already started with some...
Can you just text me this to remind me, like a list?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna FaceTime.
Okay.
Okay, so first off, let's do some shrimp heads.
There's a little spoon.
Yes, there's a spoon bowl.
Okay. You actually eat this stuff?
Yup. Let's do some...
Oh, look at this dude.
That's Morton.
So far, so good.
That's food. Next is water. Cup. No phones. Cup. Shake the Seacon Prime.
Oh my god. So check throughout the day and let you know. Got it.
That should be it.
Yep. Just send me a big text tomorrow to remind me of all this stuff.
Alright, so we went over leaving them at home with family, friends, or if we did the pet sitter route. So when you are leaving your hermit crabs, when you're going away on vacation, just make sure that you're leaving them with someone that you can trust and depend on and call when needed. Alright, so now let's say you're going away on vacation just for a few days. If it's just for a few days, you don't necessarily need to get a pet sitter or have a family member or friend take care of them. However, I do recommend still having that emergency contact at home in case something does come up and you have someone that you can depend on to be there for your hermit crabs while you're away, whether that's 1 day or 4. So, setting your tank and hermit crabs up for success while you are away for a few days. Starting with food and water, we want to leave them with clean, refreshed, filled water pools. And of course, provide a generous amount of dried, complete meals, mixes, foods to last while you are away. We definitely don't want to leave fresh food because in these high humidity climates, we don't want to cause molding since we aren't there to refresh as needed. Have your tank staples refreshed and filled up, your leaf litter, foraging mixes, worm castings, oils, green sand. We want to be leaving them with plenty of food, plenty of foraging mixes. Everything's refreshed and bountiful because we don't want them to feel like they have to compete for resources or that even just after a few days, resources dwindle. We want to set them up nicely. Heat and humidity. Before leaving, monitor your heat and humidity and make sure your levels stay consistent in a good range so you know that they will stay that way while you are away. So whether that's a week or even a few days before I do leave, I want to keep an eye on the heat and humidity, and if I notice it's staying at 80 consistently all the days leading up to my vacation, I can feel confident and better leaving them because I know that I can rely on these consistent heat and humidity levels. If it's a few days before your vacation and you notice your heat and humidity levels are bouncing up and down, not staying consistent and not in a good range for them, then definitely adjust accordingly. Figure out what the cause is, what's wrong, what can be done better, and make sure to get that figured out and situated so your heat and humidity are back at consistent levels before leaving. I love to recommend the Inkbird hygrometer. It is a Bluetooth hygrometer that connects to your phone via the Inkbird app. So I can monitor my tank's heat and humidity even when I'm not home. I just go on the app and I can see what the heat's reading, what the humidity's reading. So while I'm away, I'm not guessing or worrying or stressing like what is the heat and humidity at. I can literally just check and it will tell me. And then that's when having that emergency contact while you're away. If I notice my humidity drops a ton and I'm like, what is going on? I can call that emergency contact and be like, hey, can you just swing by my house and give the hermit crab tank a little mist? Or if it gets too cold, hey, can you swing by and just plug the extra heat pad in? So it's good to have that emergency contact resource for those reasons. And the Inkbird hygrometer just saves you so much stress and worrying and the what if factor. And then lighting. Whatever room you keep your hermit crabs in, make sure the blinds are left open just so they get that natural light cycle, because you're not there to open and close the blinds as needed. And you can get an overhead light with a timer, which is really helpful. So their natural light cycle is just taken care of automatically that way. Another really helpful device is the Wise camera. Just like a baby monitor, I can just go on the Wise app and then check my hermit crab's tank real time. I can see how their activity's doing, who's out and about, if the tank's looking okay. It's just another good source of reassurance as a hermit crab parent to make sure that everything's okay. You can check in even while you're away. And then the emergency contact, which we touched on, in case of a power outage or another emergency that requires someone to take action for the Hermes on your behalf, you have that contact, you have that safety net in case, worst case scenario, you really need someone to swing by and tend to their tank. All right, so the travel tips. Have an emergency contact, an Inkbird hygrometer, and a Wise cam will save you so much stress and worry. And then meal prep. So whatever pet sitter that you have while you are away, you can meal prep and make the meals in advance. Set aside the meal mixes that you want to use for each night for them. You could get those little medicine containers that you could plan out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. for them. Or you could write out a menu, use this night, this, that night. Just some sort of meal prepping method just to help them navigate how they should be feeding them each night. That way we can assure that they are definitely getting their complete meals and all their nutrients and animal protein, etc. every night. Okay, now let's move on to moving and bringing the shelled gang with you. We got one option here. We can set up a proper travel tank for your drive. I personally do not think flying is an option with hermit crabs, at least in a proper care way, so driving is the option. All right, let's build our travel tank. We want to use an easy to carry transport tank or like a storage bin. I have a small 10-gallon tank that I've used in the past for much shorter drives, like an hour, but when I moved to Boston with them, I used a storage bin. And I was also traveling with like 5 to 7 hermit crabs at a time, so I wanted more space. We want proper heat and humidity, of course, for our hermit crabs in their travel tank. We want that sealed lid. You could use tinfoil or saran wrap too. Have the inside of the car warm if, have that heat blasting if it's winter, or don't have it scorching hot in the summer, but don't blast the AC and make it too cold for them. I put my hermit crab's needs before mine, so one time I was driving and it was like that transition season between summer and fall. It is really hot out. However, I did not blast the AC at all. I don't even think I put on the AC. I might have just cracked the windows. I just have a sports bra on at this point, just dripping sweat, but it was the correct conditions for my hermit crabs, so I sucked it up and drove that way. If you need that extra heat though, you can use hand warmers and heat packs made for humans. Humidity, mist the walls every few hours. with primed water, of course. You can put little clumps of damp sphagnum moss inside, and the water dishes will also help with the humidity. And of course, have that hygrometer inside the travel tank so you can keep an eye on that and adjust accordingly if you have to. Substrate in your travel tank should just keep it shallow. We don't want to encourage molting or digging during a drive. If we have deep substrate and a hermit crab starts to dig underground and then we hit a big bump, their little burrows could concave in on them and suffocate them. We don't want that. We don't want to encourage digging. Just have a little shallow layer of play sand mixed with eco earth. And you can add leaf litter and like sphagnum moss foraging mixes on top too. So food in your travel tank, offer a complete meal or two for a road trip snack, perhaps include popcorn as a special treat since they are taking the move well. You can offer a fruit, veggie, egg, piece of meat. You don't have to go crazy, it's just a temporary travel tank, but give them a snack option if they are hungry. And having the leaf litter scattered about, like they love to munch on that too. And for water, have a salt and fresh pool. You don't have to use like your big main pools though, just like little dishes will do. Again, it's just a temporary drive. Don't worry about bubblers, but do use your Sea Chem Prime and your Instant Ocean. Add some hides for them to feel safe during this move. It's definitely like a stressful situation for them. They might be scared. They're gonna feel better having cover. What I've done that I've noticed I really like is adding Tupperware containers filled with sand and sphagnum moss to create these cozy little snuggle dens. They'll just make themselves comfortable, snuggle right in, and just nap. It keeps them secured, comfortable, safe. As you're hitting bumps and stuff, they're in this tight space. I'm sure some of you are wondering, what if I have molters when I'm moving? So if you're in a situation where you have to move right now, you can't wait, you can't leave them and then come back for them, it's time to go type situation, then unfortunately you have to dig them up. Create a separate travel container for the molters so they are isolated from the rest. Dig up the molter very slowly and carefully and make sure to put any extra exoskeleton you find with the molter in the travel container. Never rebury a dug up molter. Place a hut or hide of some sort gently on top to provide darkness and security. So when I was moving to Boston and then when I moved back from Boston to New Jersey, I had molters. My situation was very fortunate. So when I moved to Boston and I had Steely still molting, I just left him in the tank because it's at my house in New Jersey and I had my mom take care of him while I was gone and to keep an eye out like when he comes up from his molt. I had a separate 55-gallon tank in Boston. Steely stayed home and molted in the 40-gallon. So I moved Norton, Scooter, Tito, and Peony up to Boston while Steely was at home molting in the 40-gallon. Steely comes up from molting. I drive back to New Jersey to pick him up, and then I move him back up to Boston. Then after my time in Boston, and I move back to New Jersey, I move Norton, Scooter, and Tito back to New Jersey, while Peony and Steely are up at my house in Boston. But I had a pet sitter up there to monitor that tank and then to let me know when the other two come up for molting. So now Steely and Peony come up from their molts after I moved the other three back to New Jersey. Now I'm driving back to Boston to get Steely and Peony. Then I deconstruct the 55-gallon tank and everything I have up there and then move everything and bring Steely and Peony back home to New Jersey. Lots of moving, lots of road trips, lots of miles on my car, but it was all worth it because the last thing I ever want to do is dig up a molter. So I was really fortunate in my situation where I could just leave them be and come back for them. So on my TikTok, I did make a few little travel videos that we can watch during this back and forth of New Jersey and Boston. This weekend, I brought 3 out of my 5 hermit crabs back home to New Jersey from Boston, gently took them out of the main tank and into their temporary travel tank. I made sure the heat and humidity were all set to go for them. I'm only bringing home 3 out of my 5, Norton, Tito, and Scooter, while Steely and Peony finish up molting in the 55-gallon tank. And I'm bringing these 3 home to their temporary 40-gallon tank. Preheated the car so it's all nice and warm and packed their food in the trunk and made sure they had their water and snack. I bet these are the first hermit crabs to ever go through a Dunkin' drive-thru. They were excellent co-pilots, always checking in and saying hi, stopped at a rest stop to check on them, and then hit the road for the remainder of the 6 hours. When we finally got home, I had to wait to put them in their tanks so the heat and humidity would get to the proper levels first. In the meantime, we celebrated my dog's 4th birthday. Now the tank's ready, and here they are exploring their new temporary home. All three of them actually ended up changing shells for fun last night. They had a long day and they really did so great. I'm so proud of them. And then I'll eventually take the trip to bring home the other two and the main 55-gallon tank when they are done molting. Hi, come with me to Boston to pick up my 2 hermit crabs and bring them back to New Jersey. When I got to Boston, Peony and Steely were already there waiting for me. They were left behind for the first trip because they were molting. So now my job is to take apart this 55-gallon tank and to load up my car and pack up all my hermit crab supplies, and Peony and Steely will go into this temporary travel tank. As you can see, car is completely full. This is the next day. They are riding shotgun, and there's little Steely. He was also a great co-pilot, just like Norton was. Here we are in the carpool lane. I thought it was okay because, you know, here are my passengers. But 5 hours later, we got home, and now Steely and Peony are reunited back with Norton, Tito, and Scooter, so all 5 are back home under the same roof. My next project is to now reconstruct their 55-gallon tank that I took apart, which is just sitting in my room now. But in the meantime, they will be in their 40-gallon tank, just like the old days. And stay tuned for when I redo their 55-gallon. So, moving tips. Preheat your car before putting in the hermit crabs when it's especially winter. We don't want to just put our hermit crabs into a freezing cold car. Let's warm it up. Of course, in regular circumstances, we don't want to heat the substrate. We just want to heat the air. But if we're just moving with them, you can use your car's seat warmers if your car comes with them to help keep the tank warm. Our priority is just to have them warm in general. We're not going to have any molters, and it's just a temporary drive. Prepare your travel tank in advance of your move. You know, you want to prepare them to have the best possible travel tank and set up in situations as we can. And try out the carpool lane. When I drove my hermit crabs home, I ripped the carpool lane. Even though it was just me, I had my passengers. This is Norton ripping shotgun. So if I got pulled over, I would say, "Officer, I'm carpooling. I have passengers." This is a joke, obviously. If you get a ticket, that is not my fault. So leaving our hermit crabs at home while we are away or taking them with us during a move can be really stressful. But if we know how to properly execute these scenarios, then it can save us and our Hermies a lot of stress. A lot of factors go into traveling as a hermit crab parent, but the most important to cater to is definitely heat, humidity, food, and water. Alright, so that is my presentation on traveling and moving with hermit crabs. I hope you learned something. I know it can be a very stressful and overwhelming topic. Moving with hermit crabs is tough. I don't recommend it, but sometimes we cannot help our situations. But this is what worked best for me. In my experience, I've done a lot of traveling and moving with my hermit crabs over the years, and I hope that you can feel a little more prepared if you ever find yourself in that situation as well. Our hermit crabs are exotic animals that are not as easy to travel with like a dog or a cat would be. So it's important we set them up for success, whether that's in a travel tank or leaving them at home. Thank you for watching my presentation, and happy traveling as a hermit crab parent.
So I'll take some questions whenever you guys are ready and have any. Go ahead. A new place? Well, I moved to Boston temporarily for a job. I've always grown up in New Jersey, and then I moved there for a few months and I hated my job, but quit. And then I moved back home. So I'm back home, which I've known all my life. So yeah, I'm happy. Yes.
So, I've never had to dig up a crab to move. Have you had to dig one up?
Fortunately, I've not had to dig up a mold or anything yet. Luckily, I was really fortunate, like I said in my video, to have my mom at home in New Jersey to take care of my mold there. And then in Boston, he really was still molting, and I had a pet sitter there for them. So I have not, but I do know.
Can we ask if anyone has?
Yeah, has anyone had to dig up a molter before for moving?
Not for moving, but for rescue.
Or just, yeah, in any case.
Or bringing me their crabs, you just have to dig them out gently but quickly, because you don't want to collapse what some they have, you don't want to be in there too long. So I have a bucket ready to go to move all the substrate into, and then Tupperware set up with just a little bit of substrate or a little bit of damp off. You can take a crab and whatever else into the container, seal them up, and put them into the enclosure, the correct temperature, humidity, and everything.
Yeah.
And how was the rest of the mold?
I lost one of them, but I've had to do it about 5, 6 times. Because people bring you all kinds of horror stories. So the one that I did lose, they had brought it buried in their car. So it is just shaking it, and it is the last tunnel, and he has been buried. He was still alive when I dug him out, but he didn't see him. But the other ones have all survived after a couple months.
I had one move where I had a 55, so it wasn't my gigantic pallet that they're in now.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to dig it up. So I took all the weight out of that, except for the substrate, and took a board and slid the board underneath the crab habitat and had someone help me carry it into the vehicle. It was only 1 hour drive. Got to the other location, carefully set it down. 2 or 3 weeks later, the crab came up completely normal.
Oh,
But
really?
I felt, I've heard all the stories about the collapsing, right, the collapsing tunnels, but I didn't feel comfortable digging it up. Like, I felt like if I was going to take a risk, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And I took that route and it worked for me. But,
That's a good idea.
We do have a mic if someone has a long-winded
Yeah,
question,
sorry.
so other people can hear.
Yes,
Can you come up and say this is the mic?
This is for our virtual folks,
Yeah.
because they're really missing out.
Yeah.
So that way they can, I know it.
Here you go, mic.
I have a small tank. I'm gonna upgrade this fall, but for now it's carryable.
Mhm.
So I've traveled around a lot between universities. So I've taken them in my car a lot, and they actually kind of find it fun, I think. Yeah. And I've had them molting while I've traveled with them a few times, but as long as I was really careful at not getting people.
Yeah, how long were your
Things,
drives?
they've been fine.
Were your drives like long or were they?
Usually like 2 hours.
That's pretty, yeah, with malters especially.
Yeah, my move was 1 hour and it was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I moved from New York to Virginia in 2021, right before Christmas.
Yeah, what did you do?
I stayed in a hotel overnight and rolled them all in. It was a pet-friendly hotel. We put them on the thing. I had a tank. I had 2 bins. Had babies. Had adults. I put them in the bathtub, but in their bins, and I ran warm water in the bathtub. And that kind of helped keep.
I was gonna ask, how did you do the heat?
Yeah, it was like March or something.
Walters?
No, not molters.
That's good.
I dug everything up really early because we had movers moving the tanks and everything. So I did have a few that I had to dig up, but they were done and better by the time we drove them.
Good, okay. Well, that sounds like a stressful move. Yes.
Have you ever had, sorry.
Have you ever had to stay somewhere overnight, like a hotel with your crabs, or has it only been like a couple hour drive?
Luckily, I have not had to do the hotel like Mary has. All my drives with my hermit crabs have been either New Jersey to Boston, 5 to 6 hours in traffic, and then, or New Jersey to, actually no, that was the only time moving with my hermit crabs. Yeah, Boston. So, and there I stay overnight or anything, I lucked out in that aspect. But if I did have to stay in a hotel, that would be a whole different ballgame, and now I know that's Mary too. Yeah. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
So the last CrabCon, I'm traveling for 14 hours, basically down from Canada.
Yeah.
And last CrabCon, I took 2 of Mary's babies home. I think, in the same way, moving with them when you're not safe, preparation is key. So with me, I made sure that I had an enclosure that would keep the most amount of heat. So I created like a little tank that was completely surrounded with bubble wrap, like the metallized bubble wrap, so that it would retain as much heat as possible. When I was traveling, I didn't offer water, like loose water in the tank. I didn't want it sloshing, very minimal amount of substrates. You don't want burying, lots of speck and moss that they can bury, but that also keeps the humidity up. And then when I got to the hotel, I made sure that I had a heat pad that I could plug in. Like you, when I was traveling, their comfort was, I sweat all the way back up to Canada. And us Canadians, we don't sweat happily. But to make sure that they had the ultimate amount, but it was all about preparation and making sure that you had the basic necessities. So like I traveled with my prime water, my salt water, like with, thank God, coming back from CrabCon, I had lots of food, so I didn't have to worry about that. But just making sure that you have those necessities lined up and ready so that when you arrive at a hotel, you can set up that perfect environment, or at least as close to perfect as possible. And, I even took a regulator with me so I could manage my heat, make sure that it was, the proper heat overnight, and like a little hydrometer to make sure that my humidity was okay. It was a little high, but, at the same time, I had to realize that I'm trying to create it as close as possible without it being perfect.
Yeah.
But preparation is key.
For sure. Good to know.
And I would add, you really only need fresh water for travel. I mean, they like to have both, but for however many hours, they can just be fine with fresh water. Take your time. I had a big gallon of pre-primed, but yeah. I have a question online from Liz. Coming from the south where it's hurricane season, we typically have minimal time to get out of the area and don't usually have much room in cars when they're packed with other people. Do you recommend leaving them or taking them? If taking would be the best option and you have to stay in a hotel for a few days, how do you recommend heating the container and keeping it?
Well, personally, I would never leave my hermit crabs out. If there's a fire, you'll catch me running inside and getting my hermit crabs. There's no way I'd ever leave my hermit crabs. So if I have molters, I'm gonna dig them up in an emergency. That's just their absolute best bet than leaving them. And I personally think it's great to have like little travel bins set aside in your house for these emergencies, worst case, just like as you would prepare for your dog or cat, prepare for your hermit crabs. So if there was an emergency such as a hurricane, I have my travel bin and I would just dig up some altars, hope for the best, and take care of them when I get to safety wherever I go.
Yeah, we actually have a video in the CrabCon archives about how to prepare for a disaster from Jeff did it, and he lives in Florida. Anybody else?
White ball.
Yeah, Laura.
So what if you're not driving and you're flying? What should you do? Is shipping an option for adult crabs? Like, I lost some crabs from shipping once, so like, are there options?
Yeah, I've never done shipping personally. I would just hate to do that personally with like putting a hermit crab through that. Flying, I've never moved or traveled anywhere such that require flying. In that case, if it's like anywhere in the United States and I'm moving like to California, let's say, I'm definitely gonna drive that hermit crab instead of ever flying. I don't know if you can get through security or anything with hermits. Like I'm not sure in that flying aspect. Yeah, has anyone ever flown with hermit crabs?
Carolyn Orr flew with Jonathan. I think she ended up having to buy him an extra seat.
Really?
But she had to get approval, she had to get a vet certificate, just like all those things. She had to really jump through. And that was before 9/11, so.
I think different now.
I think mostly they say no, but they could go in the hold. I ship babies all the time. I only do it in the summer months when the temperature's good on the leaving end and the arrival end, and I only do it overnight and only in an insulated shipping container. And the only loss we've ever had was one that got waylaid in Tennessee, and there was a cold snap. And they were coming from Courtney Carr in Arizona and going to Florida, so I thought we would be good, but I didn't check the connection. The connection was in Tennessee, and they haven't. So I do now. But that's the only, and I've shipped 1,000.
It's much colder now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we keep the luggage in.
Well, so an insulated container.
Yeah.
Do that. You can also put a heat pack if you know what you're doing, but I don't recommend it because it especially if it's an insulated container, it tends to build too much heat.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Randy?
I have one. Go ahead.
Did somebody here have one?
Yeah. Oh, you want to?
And so like after you got to your, like done with your drive, how like anxious were your hermit crabs?
That's a good question. How anxious are my hermit crabs, or how stressed were they after these moves with Boston, New Jersey? Just like how all of our hermit crabs have different personalities, it really depended on each of my hermit crabs. Norton, he was great. He was my little co-pilot buddy. He was not phased at all. But then Steely, for example, he was my newest rescue at this time. He's a little more stressed than the others. You could tell that he was a little uncomfortable and anxious and stressed. But as soon as I put him into his new home when I got to Boston, he de-stressed. He went and saw a water pool. He kind of just nestled and buried himself for a few days, and he was perfectly fine after that. So it really just depended on their personalities, but they really did very well. I was really, really proud of them. I set them up in a good travel tank so they had everything they needed, but they handled the moves multiple times very well. They're actually really, really resilient creatures that bounce back very fast.
Especially when they're kept in good condition.
Good condition,
beforehand.
yeah,
Yeah.
and preparing for these moves, for sure.
Yeah, like we had to take a flight to Canada for like 8 days. So we put our hermit crabs in like a wagon and we wheeled them to our neighbor's house.
Oh,
And they watched them.
oh, good. That's a smart idea. Yeah. Thank you.
We have another question online from Randy Vogel. I'll be moving soon and have several molters in a 75-gallon tank. I want a bigger tank for my new place, and I won't be moving far, but there will be a wait in between the move and setting up their new tank. I have two 20-gallon tanks as well, but no heating pad. What do you suggest I use and do?
Okay. Do you know what the waiting period, how long the waiting period is? Or?
I don't think it's
Oh, yeah. I guess for the waiting period between your moves of going from tank A to tank B, you're going to want to have these temporary tanks and you know, heating pads. I mean, you could definitely get, if you have the ultra-therm heat pads that you can remove easily, I would put them on your temporary tanks. And if you don't, then maybe look into some alternatives that won't cost you as much for heat pads, just so you can put them on your temporary tanks. And think of it as an investment because these temporary tanks you can use again and again with these heat pads otherwise. And then I would just treat these temporary tanks as you're setting up these main tanks with the food, the water, the proper water care, add your bubblers, add the enrichment, add everything that you would into a main tank, but make it easily deconstructible for you in the future, just to save you a lot of time, money, and labor. And then you can just make sure your hermit crabs are in the best optimal care in between tank A and tank B. I would just invest in things that you could use also again in the future. So don't think about it as wasting money in these temporary tanks because you will use this stuff again.
I actually use plastic bins.
Me too.
I even screwed up, I made holes in it and I hung the wheel there so they could still move around.
Yeah,
So-
and you'll use them again and again. They're great to have, and yeah, I use plastic bins too.
I just recommend the temporary if it's not like if they're not going to be staying in the temporary tank for like a long time, like let's say it's only for like a couple weeks, like less than a month. I would limit your amount of substrate so you're not encouraging things in that temporary tank.
Very good idea.
That would be my
Yeah, definitely limit. Don't want molting to happen in temporary tanks. That would not be fun. Anything else before we wrap up? Okay. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you.